right, still with us, criminal defense attorney Jeffrey Wolf. And Jeffrey, you kind of touched on it here a few minutes ago, talking about why have the knife. Now, of course, we know kids get in fights, teens get in fights. They've been doing it for decades. But introducing weapons kind of kicks things up a notch. And, you know, we heard earlier today that at that first altercation, Valet was fighting and he had a motorcycle helmet, swinging it, trying to hit the people he was fighting with. And now ultimately we know at the second fight, he had the knife that killed James McGrath. How do you think the jury is digesting that information, this testimony, and do you think that hurts his defense, that he was using weapons?
Yeah, I mean, a weapon is always a game changer, Cody. It's the kind of thing that takes it from a schoolyard fight that's happening at a high school party and ratchets it up a level into a level of danger that can make it, a criminal offense. And it is the kind of thing that makes a juvenile get charged as an adult, right? That takes you out of juvenile court and into adult court and has you facing decades in prison instead of rehabilitative measures that you would face in juvenile court, because that's what we're used to seeing with kids. We're not used to seeing them on court TV. And so the weapon is the game changer for him. And the bottom line is, at the end of the day, we see him swarmed and surrounded by other kids. And so maybe he had a reason to believe that he was in danger before he got there. We have not heard from the defense yet at this point. And so if he had a reason to believe he was in danger, arming himself prior might make a little bit more sense when we get there. But at this point, the jury is probably having some thoughts in their head of, why did he even have a knife? That's my thought as a parent. Why would you take a knife to a high school party? You're looking for trouble. That's the initial instinct. It's got to be.
And Jeffrey, as a criminal defense attorney here, we also heard that witness testimony say that Valet went back to the car and got the knife before everything went down. Where does self-defense come in there? How does a defense attorney begin to even defend against that testimony? I mean, you kind of touched on it here just a second ago, saying maybe with the numbers, with the amount of people that were involved in the fight, ganging up on them. Where do you begin to defend that?
Well, you have to look at what was said to him prior. You have to look at any threats that were made. You have to say that this other group of kids were making threats and that he didn't know what weapons they may have had, that he didn't know what they were going to do as a group against him, that he didn't know if he was going to have anybody else to help him against a large group. And so he felt that he had to do something to try and thwart this attack, that maybe he thought the knife would cause them to leave him alone, that he didn't realize it would continue to escalate and he would end up having to use the knife, something along those lines, that he went to get the knife because of something that happened prior to going to do it. You have to have a reason for introducing the knife into the equation.
All right, appreciate your insight as always, Jeffrey. You are sticking around for the rest of this hour. Folks, coming up, more testimony from Connecticut and the Preppy Party Murder Trial for defendant Raul Valet. Plus, a juror from the Karen Reed murder retrial speaks out today about what she really thinks happened to John O'Keefe that night at 34 Fairview. Hear what she has to say after finding Reed not guilty in John O'Keefe's murder. That's all after the break. All right, he's still with us, criminal defense attorney Jeffrey Wolf. And Jeffrey, listen, I know this is a horrific, unsettling type of case involving these kids whose lives are essentially changed forever. But do you think that the jury in this case will take their age into consideration? I mean, Valet was just 16 at the time. There was underage drinking involved. Not that that gives a pass for what went down, but do you think age and immaturity will be considered when the jury eventually gets this case?
I sure hope it takes it into account because, I'm a criminal defense attorney, so I apologize if my defense attorney stripes show a little bit here, but I stand for one of the propositions that nobody should be judged on their worst day and multiply that by a factor of 10 for a kid, okay? Because kids make mistakes every day and they grow and they learn and they change day by day and they mature and they learn from the mistakes that they make. Now, this mistake is a mistake he's never going to be able to take back. And so there are going to be consequences for this mistake if he was not defending himself. If he was defending himself like any other citizen in our country, he has a right to do it. But if he wasn't defending himself and this mistake was something where he took someone else's life and he did it with malice and he did it in the wrong way, there should be consequences for it. But should the consequences on somebody who was 16 at the time be the same for somebody who's a grown adult? I sure hope not in this country. I sure hope not. And I sure hope that a jury and a judge take that into account. I sure hope so.
Absolutely, Jeffrey, and only have about 15 more seconds with you here. Quickly, should he take the stand? I know he has to convince a whole jury that he feared for his life, but that means we have to hear from him. That essentially requires him to take the stand, does it not?
Unless there's a witness to the self-defense, he damn sure better.
Absolutely. All righty. Thank you, Jeffrey Wolf, for joining us this hour. Appreciate your insight, as always, my friend. Now, coming up, we'll go to Dedham, Massachusetts for more on the Karen Reed case. Now that the verdict is in, how should we feel about Michael Proctor?
Yeah, she's a babe. Weird Fall River accent, though. No ass.
We'll break down the public perception of the lead investigator on Reed's case with our legal analyst after this short break. Keep it right here on your front row seat to justice.